This is the thing we do every week where we break down and bitch about the goings-on in the world.
Yeah, and we make you depressed or angry. And I got a special personal segment at the end that I want to do where I'm going to just make you depressed even more because you're going to find out it's always been this way.
Looking forward to it. Oh my God, there's so much to go over this week.
Yeah, so I don't know. I didn't really organize the outline this week. It was a stream of consciousness.
Well, it's all very well tied together because it's all very dismal, and we may as well start with the home front and Biden enforcing Trump's legacy.
Yeah, so Trump had a policy when he was president that you couldn't claim asylum if you entered the United States illegally, and you were automatically deported. That went away when Biden became president, but he this week decided to reenact that for some reason. Now, what I don't understand about this, entering the country legally costs a lot of money, and it's hard to do. And these people that need asylum don't have the means to do that. So this essentially means we're not giving asylum anymore. That's what it means to me.
Yeah, it's. I think it's been stated that way, stated very clearly by the administration.
So that effectively closes the border in my book, which is what the Republicans wanted them to do. So I guess they win.
Have you seen Biden or Representative Biden speaking publicly about this shift and what they've justified it as?
I have not.
He can't hide from it for very long.
I don't generally watch what the Biden administration has to say about anything anymore after listening to all the bullshit they spew about Israel every week. I've just tuned them out.
Yeah, that's the only thing I look for from them is to see how hypocritical they're being and how much they're dodging, and it's fucking disgusting.
But yeah, this is I don't really understand this move. So yeah,
how does it not feel like him appeasing Trump's base?
It absolutely feels like that, and that has to be what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be. Or he's trying to get the independent. I mean, we all know independent voters decide elections. Maybe he's trying to appeal to the independent voters that don't like immigrants, the racist asshole independents, I guess. I don't know. But it's a weird shift, and I don't get it. I don't understand. I mean, yeah, whatever. Doom. All right, then we got good news. Steve Bannon, he's going to prison for contempt of Congress. That's kind of fun. I hope he enjoys it. I don't even remember what he did. What was his contempt? Did he not show up to a subpoena or something?
I think he refused to testify on a subpoena that was issued to him.
Okay, so what about all the Congress people that refused to testify when they were subpoenaed?
Right. And it was
that asshole from Ohio.
Jim Jordan?
Jim Jordan, yeah. He refused to show up for a subpoena. Let's put him in prison. Him and Steve can be roomies.
Mm-hmm.
Or cellies, I think they call them. All right, more good news. Alex Jones, I don't know if you saw this video, but he agreed to liquidate. He agreed to a deal where he was going to liquidate his assets, including his stake in Infowars, in order to compensate the Sandy Hook families that successfully sued him for a few $1 billion. And he recorded a video of him announcing that he agreed to this, and he had to sell everything, and he was in tears. He was bawling, and it was fun to watch.
I have not seen that. I heard the story, but I've not seen that video.
Yeah, that's fun. So, I don't know. Normally I put the good news at the end. I put it in the beginning this time.
So, is he still going to be left with an empire after liquidating these assets? He's only doing it to the degree that he needs to satisfy that judgment.
Well, but the judgment's $1 billion. It's a few $1 billion, isn't it? It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think he. Yeah. I don't think he's taking everything from him. But
has he ever appealed that judgment, and the appeal was lost, or was it chosen not to be heard?
I don't know that either.
But at any rate, he's moving towards satisfying the judgment.
Yeah.
I'm not giving them kudos for that because it was going to happen one way or the other, but good. I'm happy that he will suffer for it. That's what this is about.
Yeah, and I don't know what's going to happen with Infowars if he doesn't own it. I mean, I assume it's going to go on. So he's probably just going to, sell it to somebody else, and he'll still be on it and everything. So
Oh yeah, of course.
spreading all his misinformation and saying all the terrible things.
Yeah, I'm
All right.
definitely going to look for that video now because I haven't seen it. I would love
Oh,
to.
it's just fun to watch him cry. I'm not sure if it's real or not, but it's still fun. I mean, it's a real video. I'm not sure if they're real tears because those motherfuckers don't give a fuck about anything.
I don't think he's capable of feeling anything.
Yeah. All right, this is another video. This was on a Fox News interview. I'm sure you've seen this one, where the interviewer asked Trump, "If you become president again, will you declassify the 9/11 files?" He immediately answers, "Yes." "Will you declassify the JFK files?" He immediately answers, "Yes." "Will you declassify the Epstein files?" Yeah, I guess I would. I think less so though, because you don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because it's a lot of phony stuff with that whole thing.
And how did the QAnon child thyroid eating conspiracy fucks see that and not be like, oh yeah, he's one of them?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't seen the excuses. Well, I know that was the whole video. When the video aired, they edited that out.
Oh
Fox
yeah,
did.
no, of
But then
course.
it leaked later. The whole video leaked later. So yeah, Fox took all that suspiciousness out and just had him say yes.
Hmm.
Um, but man, if there's not a more suspicious answer than that. That's insane. So I don't know. I know obviously he's in there more than we know.
But also, I had seen on the issue with Trump that it was either Idaho or Utah. I think it was Utah is prohibited from putting him on the ballot because of his felony convictions.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's interesting.
and that New York State, and I don't know what the fuck he's doing with a gun license. Trump's never touched a gun in his life, but the state of New York revoked his gun license based on his felony convictions.
Hmm. And did they revoke his gun license that he had, or did they just like put something in
Prevent him
place
from
so that he
getting
can't
one.
get a gun license?
They used the word revoked, so I was wondering what he was doing
Interesting.
with a gun license.
Don't know. Although I do have a concealed carry permit in Pennsylvania, and I don't own any guns.
Yeah, we used to have one in Florida until DeSantis made it legal for everybody to conceal carry, which is what everybody does now.
Yeah.
Um,
My cousin was the signature authority on that about 10 years ago, and I was just like, oh, I might as well fill this out and have my cousin sign it before he retires.
there you go.
So I did.
Um,
But
in that same note, DeSantis issued a statement just a few days ago saying that in Florida, Trump is still eligible to vote based on his felonies.
so it must be, like you said last week,
Violent.
violent felons can't
Yeah,
vote.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I think.
Although I would expect they would just change the law if they had to allow him to vote.
True, they would have. But DeSantis, we're tangenting a little bit here, but DeSantis hasn't been making sense lately because there's a referendum that is now on the floor ballot in November for legalizing recreational marijuana. DeSantis fought very hard in the Florida Supreme Court to get that off the ballot. The Supreme Court told him to fuck off. It's on the ballot for this November. DeSantis the other day issued a veto against some proposition that would have made CBD products and hemp products illegal in Florida. He vetoed that so that CBD and hemp products are protected, which is not in line with him trying to take recreational marijuana off the ballot unless he's seeing some significant difference between those two products.
Yeah, well, I think that he probably got some money from a lobby
Oh
for
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
CDB stuff.
yeah.
And then his anti-marijuana thing that's just an appeal to the religious right that doesn't like drugs.
Yeah, and I had pointed out to somebody the other day that the biggest, and we had to fight like hell to get medical marijuana approved on the ballot last election. Biggest opponent to anything cannabis related in Florida is the family that owns the Publix supermarket chain. Publix is like the HEB.
I know Publix.
Yeah. And so the ultra religious crazy fucking family that owns Publix has always come out against cannabis. And never mind that they want the restrictions around having liquor in their grocery stores relaxed. They're very, very in favor of alcohol being, more widely available. But cannabis is the boogeyman.
It's funny because I do know Publix, but I don't know what the hell that other thing you were trying to explain to me. HEE, what is that?
Oh, HEB. That's a Texas thing. It's like a giant grocery chain in Texas.
Well, I used to live in Atlanta. They got Publix there, so I'm familiar with it.
Oh, really? Yeah. I didn't know that it was anywhere other than Florida.
Yeah. Well, plus I go to Florida. My parents have a house in Florida. I go to Florida sometimes. And we shop at Publix. But, yeah. Here in Pennsylvania, we have medical marijuana. We have for maybe 5 or 6 years. And interestingly, the governor is very much in favor of recreational marijuana, Josh Shapiro, and the Democrats as a whole are. But most of the Republicans I see are as well. I don't know what's taken so long to pass it. Like, I don't really see anybody that's against it vocally in Pennsylvania, but they haven't passed it yet, so I don't know.
So you're saying Pennsylvania doesn't have recreational yet?
No.
Oh, I thought y'all did.
Nope. Ohio does. New York does.
Yeah.
So that's what got the Republicans on board. They saw the money leaving the state to go to New York and Ohio since they both legalized it, and they're like,
well,
hey,
New Jersey too, right? Doesn't Jersey have recreational?
Yeah, that's on the other side of the state, though. I don't know what goes on over there. But yeah, I live in the corner that's between New York and Ohio. Each one is only about 20 minutes away.
Is there anything on your ballot for this November to move that, or no?
No, we don't do referendums here. The only thing that we get to vote on is if they do constitutional amendments. Those will be on the ballot. The people get to vote on those. But we don't have like ballot initiatives in Pennsylvania like some states do.
Wouldn't you want to?
I would, but we don't. It's not it's not in our constitution. That's not how we do it. Most states don't. I don't think.
Huh.
I mean, a few states do. I'm aware of that. California definitely does. We get things on the ballot that are about elections. Like if they want to change rules about elections, those will be on the ballot. And constitutional amendments get on the ballot. That's it. Just regular laws, they don't. So it's just up to the Congress to pass those. Speaking of which, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but in Pennsylvania, there's a big fight always, and it's been going on for decades, 40 years at least, where there is no law preventing you from bribing our elected officials.
I think I've heard this before.
And the people run on it all the time, like, we're going to stop this corruption, and then they don't. Like, it never goes anywhere. and these people, this is you can't bribe the governor, you can't bribe the mayors and things. Only the members of the assembly. You can bribe them legally. And they do. The watchdogs report on this all the time. The trips they get, the cars they get, like all this shit. And none of it's illegal. It's crazy.
How do you even fight something like that? Because it seems, okay, I'm going to compare this to something that's been talked about over the past few years since the last election, was abolishing the filibuster. And that's been talked about at the federal level. And it was the Democrats this time that decided they were going to take up the fight to abolish the filibuster. But the Democrats have used the filibuster when it's convenient for them.
Of course.
So it didn't make any sense to me and it seemed to me that it was disingenuous for that reason, that they're talking about abolishing the filibuster, but they never really intended to, because they need it sometimes too.
And it's like when we were screaming in 2020 that we want to expand the Supreme Court and abolish the filibuster, and Biden never supported either of those things.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of talk to appease certain segments of the voter base, but they never take any action on it.
No.
Now, in contrast to that, it seems to me that the Republicans, when they decide that there is a hot button issue that they can use to inflame their voter base, they actually develop legislation around supporting those hot button issues. Project 2025 is a good example of that. All the stupid shit that is in there is a direct appeal to very specific segments of their voter base, and by all accounts, they're going to take action on those things. So they will do what the craziest segments of their voter base want, whereas Democrats, they give it lip service, but then they never do anything beyond that.
No. Well, and that's why today they're not even running on doing anything. They're just running on we won't be as bad as those guys.
Yeah.
That's literally all there is.
Yep.
I have been seeing a lot of editorializing on Biden dropping out of the presidential race. I don't know what smoke there is behind the scenes, but I've seen a few editors of various news publications write just stories what will happen if he drops out, like recently within the last week.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's something they're hearing. He has to know that he's in trouble.
It's getting awfully late in the game to make a move like that.
Yeah.
Because I think the Democratic convention is in July or August.
Yeah, we looked it up before. I know the Republican one was
In
after,
July.
Right? Or I don't remember. We looked it up.
They're a couple months away.
Go look back at episode 26. We tell you when the when the conventions are.
You really know the number of the episode? Or you
no, I'm making that up.
You had the impression.
I do know we talked about it. I don't know when it was.
But if he does this and hands the ticket over to Kamala Harris, they're done.
But is he going to hand it over to Kamala Harris? Because she's not very popular. I don't know. I mean, they can put anybody they want. If he drops out at the convention, they can nominate anyone they want.
True.
I think Gavin Newsom might have a shot. He's more popular. I don't know who else. He's nationally known. Nobody else is really nationally known.
Hakeem Jeffries, but he's
maybe.
A piece of shit.
I don't know if he's nationally known. Maybe.
Who's the troglodyte that had the stroke? That's a piece of Israel shit now.
Fetterman?
Yeah, Fetterman.
That's my senator. And voting for him in the primary is the biggest regret I've ever had.
Well, you did it based on all the available information.
True. But I think I told you the guy that ran against him on the Democratic primary. That was in 2020. He's running for Auditor General this year on a state post. I'm gonna vote for him. I'm gonna vote for him this time. He's a 20-something-year-old gay black man. So I'll vote for him.
But according to that, he should be a decent person. But
yeah, I would think so. I did watch a debate between him and Fetterman in 2020, and he called out Fetterman on a lot of stuff, but I didn't know who he was, so I didn't really know if he was just making that up. You know what I mean? He sounded like a Republican kind of, with how hard he was going after Fetterman, but I guess he actually knew Fetterman a lot better than the rest of us did.
Mm.
So his name's Malcolm Kenyatta, and I'm gonna vote for him for Auditor General this November. I don't know if I'm gonna vote for anyone else, but I'm gonna show up to vote just so I can vote for him. All right, so we've seen the right in particular talk about World War III being imminent, like this. With everything that's happening, right?
Yeah.
I don't buy into that so much, but lately I've read a lot of stuff that it seems like the world wants World War III to happen, or they think it's going to, right? Mm. So just yesterday, they announced that Norway and Germany are going to convert factories to build Patriot missile systems, which Germany is going to deploy around Europe to protect from Russian missiles. Ukraine this week, we knew this was going to happen, but they started striking targets inside Russia with U.S. weapons. I don't know what that's going to do, what Putin's going to do about that. I will say, though, I don't know why we're afraid of Russia. I also read another article this week that they are now rounding up African immigrants in Russia and forcing them to fight because they're out of soldiers. So are they really prepared to fight a war with the rest of Europe? It doesn't feel like they are.
Well, here's my take on this. First of all, the fact that Putin doesn't have a plan to lose in Ukraine by any metric should be concerning to people. Putin is not the type of person who is going to acknowledge defeat. And if he has to completely take Ukraine off his radar screen, he's going to go scorched earth against NATO. I don't have any doubts about that. He's not going to walk away from this without a chunk of land in Ukraine.
What I think the most likely scenario, he may use tactical nuclear weapons. I don't think we're going to see large-scale nuclear bombs. I don't know what our response would be if we see someone use tactical nuclear weapons. To best of my knowledge, have never been used anywhere.
No.
I know we have them too in various places around the world. I don't know what the difference is. I know they're smaller, but like how much smaller? Like what does a tactical nuke do versus an ICBM?
I've seen some breakdowns on YouTube about what those weapons really mean and the relative uselessness of them. But even considering whether or not he would choose to use something like that, I don't think he'd be using them in Ukraine because it's going to make those territories unusable for a very long time. I think that his intention would be to use those against Poland, Germany, or Norway in response to weapons from NATO countries being used against targets on Russian soil. But if he does that, I can't imagine NATO not responding in kind.
Oh, yeah, I don't know, because we wouldn't have to. We can respond with conventional weapons and just win, right? Don't you think we can? I think we can.
But that's still an escalation. That's going to escalate, and the only thing Putin has to escalate against that is his nuclear arsenal. Maybe not tactical nukes, but ballistic nukes.
Yeah.
And I think the only way out of this is a coup in Russia. I think the only way to diffuse this completely is to remove Putin. And I can't believe, with the resources at our disposal, that there isn't some CIA plan to assassinate and remove Putin. He is the dynamic that is the most toxic to this.
True.
And it's the only way out of this. Putin has to go.
Yes.
We've done it in a dozen other countries around the world over the past 100 years.
Yeah, not ones with a strong central government like Russia has, though. We do it in countries that are like toppling. We push them over. There's already some civil unrest, and the CIA comes in and pushes them, supports the coup and pushes it on.
That's the thing we don't know, though, because we don't know. I believe the CIA knows. I believe DOD knows what the cohesiveness of the central Russian government is in terms of aligning with Putin or potentially aligning against him.
Yeah, but it also takes a opposition leader that can rally support for a coup.
Yeah.
And they killed that guy.
Yeah. Navalny. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Unless there's somebody else waiting in the wings. All right. Other stuff is happening around the world that's crazy. So North Korea was sending shit balloons to South Korea. They're doing it again today. I don't know what this is about. I don't know why they're doing that. That is weird. But we responded by having B-1Bs fly over from Guam and drop bombs on Korean bombing ranges on the border, which they haven't done in 7 years.
Well, I also saw this morning that South Korea has set up these massive arrays of loudspeakers that are pointed toward North Korea that are broadcasting propaganda for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, those speakers have been there forever. I've seen them. North Korea has them too.
Yeah.
They both have speakers pointing back and forth. North Korea also has the tallest flagpole in the world on the border there. It's like, and it's got the biggest flag in the world on it. It's this gigantic flag that's, I don't know, 300 meters in the air or something. I've seen all that. Been there. But yeah, I've seen the speakers. I've never heard them spewing propaganda though.
Yeah, it's childish. These are like children with really dangerous toys.
Yeah.
Ugh.
All right. Also, Japan is remilitarized. A lot of people probably know that after World War II, they demilitarized. We promised to protect them. If you don't have a military, they're now the 5th largest military in the world. They've been remilitarizing under our noses for years. I mean, I realize they're our allies, but what are they preparing for? And there was a speech by a NATO official in Europe that told the people of Europe that they needed to be prepared. They should start stockpiling water and canned goods. So they're expecting something.
Yeah, clearly.
Or they're pushing for it. Because there's also civil unrest in Europe. Western Europe, right? There's civil unrest. Nothing unifies you more as a nation than having your nation be at war with an enemy, right?
True.
Look at 9/11 in the United States. We've never been more united after that. Of course, that all fell apart now, but I don't know. Getting into conspiracy theory territory here, but that's just what I see. I don't know. All right, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to move on to the next topic. You got something about that? Go ahead.
No, I don't. Let's move on.
All right, this one blows my mind. All right, the U.S. House passed a resolution to sanction members of the ICC that support in any way the prosecution, investigation, or arrest of any protected persons, which are defined as American officials, U.S. military troops, or our allies. Israel, in other words.
Yeah.
Look, this isn't a law. The House passed it. The Senate isn't expected to, and Biden is now against it, although that's interesting because he wasn't originally against it, but then he got a phone call from George Clooney. George Clooney's wife was part of the investigation that led to the indictments at the ICC. She's a human rights lawyer, international human rights lawyer. And she was involved in it, and George was worried that his wife was going to fall under the sanctions. And he called Biden about it because he gave $500,000 to Biden in 2020, so he's got Biden's ear. And then Biden, after that phone call, came out against it.
Interesting.
But the Senate's is unlikely to even vote on it, so it's not going to become a law. But the fact that the House voted on this is insane. It is insane.
Mm-hmm.
What the sanctions are, they're going to deny visas, deny travel. So like, if France were to arrest Netanyahu, the president of France would be barred from coming to the United States. They're banned from owning property in the United States too. These are the sanctions that they want to put on people that assist the ICC.
It's pure retaliation, and it's on the wrong side of everything.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be shocking given the level of support that the United States has pledged to Israel and the amount of diversion that it has been trying to do against this ICJ judgment. But they're so bold with it. They're not hedging their bets at all. They're not mincing their words. They are fully behind this.
Yeah, so I don't even know what to say about it. And the fact that 42 Democrats voted for it is crazy to me. I don't know.
I'll put up the list of who those 42 are, and I'll insert it in the published clip here, so that we know.
maybe I'll email it to you. I found an organization that with one click, you put in your address, and it'll send a letter to your congressperson, and it'll either thank them if they voted against it, or tell them how disappointed you are if they voted for it. I did that. My guy's Mike Kelly. He's a piece of shit, so he got the disappointed in you letter.
My feeling about those types of actions is that they are falling on deaf ears. They never see those. They don't care what's in the content of those letters.
I think there is a critical mass. In this instance, no, the money from AIPAC is too great.
Yeah.
But in other instances where the politician himself doesn't really care one way or the other, there's a certain level of letter sending that can get them to sway an opinion. I do think that works on some things. Yeah, it won't work on this, but
I hope that's true in general. I've never seen anything change.
I don't know. I send letters to my people all the time. I've sent so many letters to Fetterman. So many. I get responses sometimes. I'm sure they're not from the senator. They're from his staff. I don't.
But do the responses look like they're responding to what you said? Because I've done the same thing.
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. I don't remember what it was, but there was something that the Senate was doing that I was disappointed in, and I sent letters to Bob Casey and John Fetterman, and I got responses from both of them that seemed personal. It really did. I don't, like I said, I don't think it was from their senators. I think it was from their staff, but sometimes they do. Well, I do know my uncle. My uncle is a politician, and he calls Bob Casey on the phone. he calls him on his cell phone and tells him he doesn't like stuff. He calls Mike Kelly and tells him he has his cell phone number too, and tells him
is he speaking to their staff, or is he
speaking
to
them? To them. Because he was for about 30 years he was the county clerk, and he was very active in the Democratic committee around here, and he's a very gregarious person. He's a handshaker, and he got to know everybody, and he has their personal phone numbers, and he calls them all the time. So
I wish I had that kind of access.
Yeah, me too.
Because I've sent the same letters to Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is my representative. You want to talk about having a piece of shit like John Fetterman? I've got Matt Gaetz. And I
never knew what part of Florida Matt Gaetz represented. Now I do.
Now you do. And my letters would be very explicit in what a piece of shit he is. And the responses I would get were always, "Thank you for your support." What fucking support are you reading into my letter?
I got to think, well, I don't know. When you send letters through their pages, right? Their government pages, you're always picking a topic. They have you pick a topic. Like it could be a piece of legislation, and then you get to pick the bill and then talk about it. And I'm sure they're using AI these days to sort stuff. And when you say you're a piece of shit, that probably just gets sorted into the fuck you.
Well, I've also used like the automated texting systems that people have set up, where just text this number and it'll send a form letter to them. And even the form letter, it's not written by me. It's written by the organization. So it's not going to say anything like what I would say, but I still get the responses of, "Oh, thank you so much for your support. We're going to continue working hard for my constituents." You're not even reading this shit.
Yeah, I don't know if... Yeah, you're right. I've never gotten a response from Mike Kelly. I've sent him lots of letters. I've never even gotten that. So it's probably not the same. Every person's not the same. Because I do get responses from Fetterman and Bob Casey, but I don't from Mike Kelly. And I've sent stuff to the White House before, and I do think I get those form letters from there.
Yeah.
I don't know. You want to talk about climate change?
Yeah, rising sea levels, Central America,
Yeah, so there's a group of indigenous Panamanians that live on an island off the coast of Panama, and they have largely abandoned their island because of rising sea levels. 1,000 people were relocated to the mainland. Panamanian government funded that because they can't live on their island anymore because it's getting smaller. So, somebody's grilling. I have the windows open and it's dinner time for somebody.
Yeah, so I'm sure they're making excuses for this is, it has nothing to do with us, and we didn't do anything to cause this. But it's happening.
Yep, it's happening, and it's going to get worse. All right. I'm on to some personal stuff. You ready to hear about what I've been doing this weekend?
I am ready.
All right. So I found on YouTube, on the PBS channel, they've got a documentary series called American Experience, and it's a bunch of documentaries about different stuff.
Mhm.
And the three I've watched so far are so disappointing. So disappointing. I watched one on eugenics, which I knew about. I knew that was a movement. I did not realize how much the government was involved in it and supported it, and that for a time was doing sterilizations of people who were determined to be feeble-minded. I
Mhm.
did not know that. I knew about Kellogg and how he was into eugenics, and I knew
Mhm.
about some other intellectuals at the time that were into eugenics, like Margaret Sanger. But I did not know that the government was fully on board with that. There were 27 states that were performing sterilizations if they thought you were stupid, or if you were an alcoholic, or whatever. There were
Mhm.
9 different things that could cause the government to sterilize you. Always women, by the way.
Oh, of course.
I did not know that. That is so disappointing. This was in the early 20th century, 1910s ish. But it's horrific. It was a horrific documentary.
Mhm.
What I was thinking about there was what the elder millennial said. I'm sure you saw that.
Oh God, yes.
Um, and I was thinking, because I'm watching this documentary and they don't say this was wrong. Like, nobody says this was wrong. They just tell you what was happening, and you're watching it knowing it's wrong, right?
Mhm.
But a guy like that, he's watching it thinking it's a great idea.
Mhm. Yeah.
Also, the other thing is the main guy that led to the eugenics movement in the United States, he wrote a book that Hitler read while he was in prison, and he wrote a fan letter back to that guy saying that he was full of great ideas and that he loved them and he was going to institute those policies in Germany. Did you know that the German eugenics program came from the United States? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Very disappointing.
I had a guy that was a friend of mine up in Vermont who was a historian for the University of Vermont, and his part of his job one month was to go through the archives of some of the old courses that were offered in Vermont. And one of them was on eugenics. It wasn't on like the historical awareness of eugenics. I know it's from the 1920s, 1930s. These archival records. It was about how to implement these processes of
Mm-hmm.
eugenics that were supported by the University of Vermont Medical School. And he came into work one day because he worked for me, completely unrelated business, but he came in just in absolute shock based on the stuff that he read, and it was the first time that I had any awareness of the degree to which, albeit regional at that point, in terms of the state of Vermont supporting these practices. But it was the clearest indication of what we believed. It was disgusting.
Yep. Yeah, so I didn't know a lot of that stuff. Watched that documentary. Very disappointing. And like I said, it's always been this way. The United States has always been evil. Always.
And none of this stuff has ever been taught to our kids. This has never
No.
been the only the things that our kids get in public school is propaganda
Mm-hmm.
supporting the machine. And those of us who have stood opposed to it and tried to raise awareness to the things that you're talking about have always been called lunatics and been dismissed as histrionics and so forth.
Yeah, and then I watched another one that was about the wealth inequality at the end of the 19th into the 20th century, and how you had the robber barons had
Mm-hmm.
amassed all this wealth and everybody else was poor and there was no middle class. But at the end of that one, you know how they fixed it? They taxed the fucking rich, and that created the middle class. And then Reagan undid it, and now we're right back to where we were. We already knew that, but if you want to watch a documentary about how it went 100 years ago, It's on the PBS YouTube channel.
It's called American Experience.
Yeah, that's the series. So there's several episodes or whatever, and by episodes they're like 90 minutes. And they're they're well done documentaries. All right, the final one I watched was about Love Canal, and I did kind of know about that. I knew it was the first Superfund site where the government made a company that had polluted the world around them pay for cleanup. I think the reason why I knew that is because I grew up next to another Superfund site in New York, where Allied Chemical had been dumping chemicals into Onondaga Lake that I grew up on the shores of for decades, and that was a Superfund site, and they had to clean it up. But Love Canal was the very first one, and I kind of knew about it, but what I didn't know and what disappointed me when I watched this documentary was how much the government, the EPA, and the local government and the EPA pushed back against the citizens when they were saying, why are we all sick? Why are we all having miscarriages? One little kid died. And the EPA was like, meh, it's nothing. It's nothing. It was a company called Hooker Chemical that was dumping the chemicals into the streams there. But honestly, the government did everything they could to do nothing about this while the people were getting sick and dying. And then a woman named Lois Gibbs, she formed a homeowners association in Love Canal, New York, which is by Niagara Falls, and started fighting against the government. I never heard this part of the story. They literally took 2 EPA agents hostage. And then Lois Gibbs came out and gave a press conference and said, we're going to let these 2 guys go. They had them hostage for a day. So we're going to let these 2 guys go. But by Wednesday, she's talking to Jimmy Carter because this was 1978. He was president. By Wednesday, you need to declare a state of emergency and unlock federal funds to help us, get out of here because we're sick and dying. And she was interviewed in the documentary, and she said, we had no plan. We don't know what we were going to do if it didn't work out on Wednesday. But on Wednesday, Jimmy Carter declared a state of emergency, and in the ensuing weeks, the Congress got together and passed the Superfund law that we still use today to force companies to clean up chemical problems around the country. Wow. That all happened because of a young mother in Love Canal, New York that decided to stand up to the fucking federal government, and she's a hero.
Did she ever get prosecuted for that kidnapping?
Did she ever get what?
Prosecuted for that kidnapping?
I don't think so. It didn't seem like it.
I've never heard the story.
She's still alive today. She lives on Grand Island in New York. But she was interviewed throughout the documentary. But most of it was videos of her in front of cameras screaming, or at press conferences that the EPA was holding, or like town halls that the EPA would have. It was just her screaming at everybody, everybody in power, screaming at them, calling them liars, and saying, because for months they told them that the chemical company had nothing to do. The EPA is telling these people, no, we did tests. There's nothing wrong with the water. This Hooker Chemical has nothing to do with any of this. Government siding with the corporation, of course. And she stood up to them, and she won in the end. So kudos to her.
I've never heard that story.
It's always been this way. It's always been this way.
Yes, it has. And is it going to change? Is there any potential for things to change? I don't know. It feels to me like the awareness of what you're talking about is more widespread today than maybe it's been in the past. But maybe that's just the fact that I haven't been paying attention my entire life.
I don't think any of us have. And, well, I mean, when all you have is propaganda to rely on, you don't know it's propaganda.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Honestly, though, if I could go back to just being ignorant, I know I'd be happier.
Right.
But short of having a stroke or something, you can't unring that bell, man. I know what I know.
Yeah, I hear you. Are we ever going to have anything really good to talk about?
No, but I got one more story if you want to hear it.
I do.
All right, yesterday I'm working at the warehouse, a charity that helps veterans that I work for sometimes on the weekends. We're at the warehouse, and I moved something up from the wall. A mattress was up against the wall, moved it, and there was a painting behind it. And I'm looked at the painting, and it took me a while to understand what was going on. The first thing I saw was a plane crashing into a skyscraper. And I was like, what the fuck? And then I looked above it, and there's Jesus up in the sky with his arms out like this. What the fuck? Then I look down on the ground, and there's fire everywhere and cars crashing into each other. What the fuck? And then I noticed that all the people that were in the cars are being sucked up into the sky, and I realized it was a painting of the Rapture as drawn by some fucking lunatic Christian guy.
Oh my God.
That was just hanging on the wall in there. It's wild. Actually, next time I'm there, I'm gonna take a picture of it.
I was going to say, please take a picture of that, because that, oh my God.
It is crazy. And the other thing about it is the colors, like it's not dark. You know what I mean? The colors are bright and happy, but there's all these horrible things happening. But I think you're supposed to not see them as horrible things. You're supposed to see it as glorious things.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I was like, oh my, religion is an illness, man.
Truly.
It is an illness.
Christ.
But yeah. That's wild. It's a wild, wild painting, and I doubt it's from anybody famous. You know, it's just some painting that's hanging in the thing. And the guy that runs the thing said that was there when they moved in, and he never noticed it before. It's like, okay, it's crazy.
It's nuts. All right. Any predictions for what we might be talking about next week? Anything on the horizon?
Well, there'll be more stuff in Israel for sure. That's all. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe.
We had our beaches closed here for about 24 hours this past week. We had 3 really bad shark attacks near Panama City Beach.
Really?
Yeah, one woman lost her left arm and got bit through the torso. She's not expected to survive. And 2 teenage girls got their legs pretty well chewed up by maybe the same shark.
Interesting. I always thought shark attacks were extremely rare.
They are. This is the first time I've seen this happen since I've lived here since 2011. But yeah, it was pretty bad.
Wow.
Bad enough for them to close the beaches, which they don't typically do.
Yeah, we don't close our beaches here either until late August when the temperature of Lake Erie gets into the 80s and it's full of bacteria and shit.
Oh yeah, we get that after like rainstorms where the rainstorms will wash fertilizers and shit into the bay, and then it creates a toxic algae bloom.
Yeah, we get those too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I know you told me you were going on an early morning hike before it got to be 100 degrees. I don't want to rub it in too much, but it's 68 and sunny today. It's the most beautiful spring day.
It's June. It's not spring anymore.
It is spring. It's spring it's till June 21st.
Okay. Well, I hope your weather turns to shit and you suffer in the heat like the rest of us.
Oh yeah, well, we've had days in the 80s. It just got cool this week. But yeah, it's supposed to get hot again. But this week's supposed to be nice.
We actually postponed our nature walk until we're probably going to go after I finish the podcast here because I wanted to wait until the sun went lower in the sky and it got cooler. They were doing controlled burns here yesterday, and everything was yellow. There was a yellow tinge to the entire sky. But
yeah, the last time I was down in Florida, it was in the actual spring, probably like March, maybe. And there were lots of fires down there. I was in Fort Myers, but there was like smoke everywhere and fires everywhere. Yeah. But I don't think they were controlled. I think they were wildfires. This was a few years ago.
It could have been. Anyway, so I don't see anything in the Google News feed that we missed, but I'm sure next week will be a full agenda.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, listening. Like, comment, subscribe.
Like, share, and subscribe. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
I've been Matt. That's James.
See you next week.